Aloha and good afternoon. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz, joining you from eTurbo News in Honolulu, Hawaii. And with me, as always, at our breaking news session is Dr. Peter Tarlow in College Station, Texas. The weather here, it's beautiful, blue sky, not one cloud, and a perfect day to be on the beach. How are things in College Station?
Well, you guys win because it is cold and rainy across much of the United States, even in Texas. So we were supposed to have uh, a big ice storm. They closed the schools here because of it, but it didn't happen. We did have a little bit of rain, and it is cold. It's going to go to about 28 degrees tonight. And for Texas, that is really cold.
Wow.
And it's always a threat because we don't have many uh, temperatures below 0 Celsius or below 32 Fahrenheit. And a lot of the pipes are not necessarily prepared. So one of the things you want to get people to do here is leave a little bit of water dripping through their pipes so your pipes don't burst, because that is really a pain in the you know what when a pipe bursts in and it's below 0 Celsius or below 32 on the Fahrenheit scale.
Well,
Not
it's
good.
79 here, so we don't have to worry about pipes
Yeah.
right
Yeah,
now.
well, I'm very jealous. Last week I was in Acapulco where it was about 38 degrees Celsius, about 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and oh, I kind of wish I were back.
And you went to Acapulco recently, didn't you?
Yes, I was giving lectures across Mexico in Zacatecas, and then in Guadalupe, which is famous for the Virgin of Guadalupe, and a big pilgrimage area, and of course in Mexico City. And then I trained police in Acapulco. I actually trained police in Zacatecas, Guadalupe, and in Acapulco, and working on trying to really turn some of the perceptions of Mexico around. Uh, Unfortunately, there's crime every place in the world, but in most cases, with a few exceptions, at least in the cities I was in, you don't have a problem if you're in the tourism areas. There was yesterday, I believe it was, or 2 days ago, and we spoke about this in the World Tourism Network. The United States had a listing of countries that were given four is the worst you can get as far as
12 countries actually in the world.
yes, 12 countries, and Mexico was one of them. And yet, in reality, you have a higher rate of COVID in the United States than you have in Mexico. And in
By
Mexico,
far.
takes much more precautions. I mean, you can't be on the street in Mexico without a mask. You cannot go to any building in Mexico, and I doubt you have this in Hawaii or Europe, without having your temperature taken. I mean, I know my temperature in Celsius is 36.3, and I'm consistent, so I guess that's a good thing. And you cannot walk into any room or building without hand sanitizer. So they really take a lot of precautions in Mexico, and I think the rates are much lower than in lots of other countries.
Yeah, and it's not only Mexico. I noticed one of the countries listed is Singapore, and it cannot get any more sterile and clean in the
No,
world than Singapore. You can literally eat from the floor everywhere. And
yes,
so I'm really surprised, and the numbers aren't really that high in Singapore. How is this determined? I just don't
I
understand it.
don't know. I don't know. But there is some good news on the way. I just sent you an article. A new major medical Israeli study talks about the fact that vitamin D is probably our number one defense against COVID. And one of the things we really want to encourage people is most people are not getting enough vitamin D from the sun or from food. Most, especially men, are deficient in vitamin D. And according to this study, one of the things we want to do is really encourage people to take a daily supplement of vitamin D. The D3 is the best of those. So the study is available. It can be seen, and I've sent you a copy of it. And you might want to write something about it in eTurbo News again to encourage people. But I think, assuming the study is correct, and of course we've gone ups and down on studies, but the taking of vitamin D can really be helpful to keeping people from getting COVID, and that's very important. The other thing that studies have been showing is that people who've had COVID, natural immunity is more efficient than any of the vaccines. Now, I believe in vaccines. I don't want anybody to misinterpret. I have not had COVID. I don't want to get COVID, and I'm happy to have the vaccines. But so I want to make all three of those very clear. But natural immunity, if you do have had COVID, um, natural immunity, it seems to be an incredibly strong and long-lasting situation. So my my suggestion is get the vaccines, but if you get COVID, it's not the end of the world in that sense, because you will have developed some natural immunity. And with the vaccines, you probably won't have a bad case of COVID.
Yeah, and the story goes on. I'm just emerging today. There's another type of Omicron found
Yes.
in 40 some countries already. And apparently, first indications say it's even by far more contagious than the current contagious Omicron. I don't know how much more contagious it can get.
And Omicron
But
is very contagious.
right, and then this one is supposed to be even by far more contagious. However, initial studies saying the same thing. It's not as severe as COVID was before. So
Right.
maybe this is a good thing. I don't know. What do you think,
Yes.
Peter?
Well, I think a lot of people in the medical profession would argue that this will bring us to herd immunity, and we're going to go from a pandemic to an endemic. And that's probably a good thing. We've learned to live with the flu. We've learned, I think there's two sides to the whole COVID story. One is the medical part of it, and the other part of it is the tremendous economic and psychological damage that is done to people around the world, and especially to children. And the dangers that have happened to children are beyond terrible. And the whole forcing of little children to wear masks, and we now know psychological damage has done. People have studied the fact that there's cognitive damage, which is done to children because they need to see the movement of the mouth. So, and on again, off again, on again, off again. That's not a direct result of COVID, but it's a byproduct of COVID. So I think that maybe if we can, God willing, move this to a yearly flu, all right, well, nobody's happy with the flu, and some people do die. That's true. But on the other hand, society doesn't stop, and most people can go on, and we can allow travel to resume. Now, having said that, I'm not against wearing a mask in public places. In other words, I think it's not a bad thing if you're in a small area that has not been sanitized very well. A mask will probably prevent the flu and prevent the cold, and nobody needs the flu or bad cold. So, so I think you come out as a winner in those types of situations. But I think that it's really important that we encourage people now to get better nutrition. And I think that's something COVID is teaching us. That means the use of vitamin D, the possible use of zinc, higher levels of vitamin C. People should be eating citrus fruits, or one way or the other getting extra vitamin C into their system. And when they do it, they need to know not to take vitamin C, especially on an empty stomach. You don't want a kidney stone. But on the other hand, these and lose weight. These are, and including me, these are all things we need to do that really strengthen us, not only against COVID, but against other diseases, diabetes and cancer and lots of other stuff. So the healthier we are, the better off as a society we'll all be.
Yes, and of course, our immune system is stronger when we're healthier. And vitamin D is interesting. Maybe in Hawaii we have to take a little bit less. We do have a lot of sun here.
Yes, but you have
what
to
do
be
you think?
outside.
Oh, okay. You got to be outside. You're right. You cannot just look at the sun.
Having the sun while you're working inside doesn't help.
It's not going to do anything.
So maybe what you need to do in Hawaii is require everybody to go to the beach for an hour as an anti-COVID measure.
Absolutely.
And go back to the classical Spanish concept of la siesta, and at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, everything stops and everybody in the whole Hawaii and the whole state goes to a beach for an hour and gets their vitamin D shot.
Actually, we call it Pahana. Yes, I understand. So what else is going on in the world? IATA is coming up with new suggestions to get away with COVID testing the way we're knowing it now when traveling. The Hawaii is thinking about allowing people without vaccine to come in without a PCR test, just a regular test. So things are really on the move when it comes to COVID. And then there are other countries like New Zealand just confirmed that major restriction will remain in place till October.
Yeah. So you have really reversals. I believe Sweden and a number of other European countries are saying that they're going to be removing most restrictions, including masks and public gatherings and restaurants and lots of things like that. And they're really rapidly opening up. England, Israel, Germany have, I believe Germany's in this, have decided that children no longer need to wear masks. That is actually harmful. And so they're again opening up. But then you have places like New Zealand, and who knows what's going on in Australia, where it feels like they're just closing down, or Canada, which is kind of gone in the opposite direction too. So I think one of the things we have to really think about is how much freedom have we lost, especially the freedom to travel. And that's really, an important issue. And how do we get this going again? I know that I've been starting to speak around the world. I'll be not this week, but next week, a week from Friday in Cancun, and dealing with some other issues that Cancun has. But again, the ability to go, speak, see things happening, make life moving is really important. And part of that is also getting rid of the silly rules. Like, for example, in the United States, you have to get a test within 24 hours of getting on a plane. Now, if you're in a big city or in Europe or at a special conference, you can do it. But if you're in a small city or in the countryside someplace, there's no way you can get within 24 hours a test and have the results back and on your phone to show within 24 hours. So people are cheating, they're buying off people. Instead of making people respect the law, we're almost creating a situation where they have to go beyond the law. And that's not good.
But Peter, it's also an issue of logistics. What would prevent an airliner to come in with enough tests for a full load of passengers, and they do it right at the gate? People are going to be at the gate 5 minutes before. The result of these tests, they take 5 minutes. So you get to get people an hour before the flight. They're sitting at the gate like Emirates is doing it. They all get a test. It's fresh, and they're good to go.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And the rapid tests are very inexpensive. And what they could do, and I really like that idea, is that every airline should come in. If you have 300 people on the plane, you have 3 unit tests, you have it done right there, and add the $15 or whatever. And so they're usually about $15. Add it onto the airline ticket and have the airline ticket include a free test.
Yeah, and the $15, of course, would make $10 for the airline, because it really doesn't cost more than $5, to do that.
Now, I did notice that Mexico City Airport, and I had not seen this in the past, but in Mexico City Airport, they now do give tests right at the airport. So
they do it at many airports.
Yes,
I got it at Munich myself. I got it at Athens.
But you're talking about Europe. I'm talking about Latin America. They're different worlds. Yes. So you would expect Europe, or some of the other more first world type countries to have that done, but in some of the more developing countries they couldn't. But your idea is it doesn't matter the development of a country. If every airline just like put on their plane, if there are 300 people they know how many people are going to get on that plane because they have tickets. And add 10 more just in case somebody buys the ticket the last moment. And you know what? Take the test right there. It would be more accurate. You'd know right away before you got on a plane.
You cannot cheat.
Yeah. In other words, if I had a test 23 hours prior to boarding the plane, there's nothing to say that I didn't get sick within that 23-hour period. But in this way, we're in great shape because the test is right at that moment. Just 10 minutes before you board the plane, you take it. They put a little, just like you check your passport, put a little sticker on your ticket. Right, you're good to go.
Yeah, get an armrest like you get on Hawaii flights.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really brilliant idea, and I think this is the type of creativity that we need to be seeing in tourism. We've become lazy in the tourism industry, and we haven't come up with new ideas for new challenges. And this is a challenge, and this will not be the last pandemic. And so the tourism industry needs to be thinking through, what do we do when the next pandemic comes, and how are we going to handle it? And let's start thinking about those concepts now rather than trying to catch up.
Well, we haven't seen the last of this yet, Peter, and the situation is ongoing. But I think we more and more see a light at the end of the tunnel. What is good,
Yes, you
especially when
do.
it comes to the
I
travel
do.
and tourism industry. Many airlines announce new flights into new regions, and new airlines started flights into. Forgot the name of the airport now in New York. There's a new international airport
In New
that
York?
is in New York. What is going to operate flights to Iceland, and from Iceland you can go anywhere in Europe very easily. They also have flights on some airlines now to Florida. So there are new opportunities in the world of travel.
Hmm. Be interesting. Is it a new airport or an airport that they just kind of
It used to
refigured?
be, I think it used to be, and I'm so sorry, I can't remember the name
Yeah,
right
is
now.
it
We
Iceland
reported about
or
it yesterday. No,
is
no,
it in
it's in New
Teaneck?
York. It's in New York. It's about 50 minutes by bus from Times Square. It says it's
50.
50
So
minutes. So
that
it's
sounds like
about
it's in New Jersey, in Teaneck.
no, no, it's in New York. It's in New York, and it used to be, and it still is a military airport with a private
Oh,
part on the military element. What is developed into passenger travel? It's going to be
okay.
an international airport with customs and immigration starting in June when the airline from Iceland is flying in.
Okay. I used to take, when I was in college many, many decades ago, not years, but decades ago, the number one way that you got to Europe from the United States was on Icelandic Airlines. And that was kind of the college students' number one favorite airline because they were inexpensive. And it went uh, from Newark or New York, I don't remember where, to Reykjavik, and then you landed in Luxembourg. Everybody landed in Luxembourg. And the two things I remember at Icelandic Airlines was they only served on it two things: cod and brandy, lots of brandy. And I would ask them, why do you serve so much brandy? They say, because you're all college kids. We figured the brandy will put you to sleep. And then they would stop in Reykjavik, and you say, how long are we going to be here? And they say, until we sold enough sweaters. So everybody would buy an
They're buying
Icelandic
sweaters.
sweater.
I did that
And
before.
I still have an Icelandic sweater. It's really beautiful. It's from, maybe it's an heirloom at this point. It's over 50 years old. But I'll tell you, Icelandic Airlines was great. You got all the cod you wanted,
Peter,
all
it's
the
still there.
brandy, the sweater.
Icelandic, so anyone listening, we don't want them to think Icelandic Airlines is bankrupt. They're still very active. They're flying to
Yes,
many US gateways,
yes.
and you can still buy the sweater. You can also book stopovers. Luxembourg is no longer the major gateway. I remember Luxembourg because I lived in Düsseldorf and they
Yes.
had shuttle buses to Luxembourg Airport. Now you can fly directly into Germany and to Belgium or wherever you wanted to go. On Icelandic, it's still there. It's a nice way to travel. I know they go out
Yes,
of Seattle, New
I have
York,
wonderful
Chicago.
memories of Icelandic Airlines. And if it
Right.
weren't for Icelandic Airlines, I never would have gotten to know Luxembourg. So, so I
And now,
really,
by the way, the airline, and I looked it up here, it's called Play. It's a non-thrill carrier, an Icelandic carrier. Actually, I don't know if it's partially owned by Icelandic or if it's competing. I
yeah,
think it's competing. And they fly to several gateways in Europe, and in the US, they're going to Boston. And this new airport is the New York Stewart International Airport, and to Washington. And
okay.
the flights are starting from $109, what is of
Wow.
course very cheap.
And is that $109 to Europe or
To
$109
Europe
to Iceland?
via Iceland, yes.
And what happens if you just go to Iceland?
I don't know. You got to look it up. You have to go to the
Um,
website for Play.
all right. Well, I'm going to look it up because, you know, the only thing I know in Iceland is where you buy the sweaters. And after 50 years, I need a new sweater. So I think it's time for me to go visit Iceland. I'd really like to visit them. I uh, I know that they are the coldest synagogue in Europe.
Well, they have hot tubs outside, so you
Yes,
can
they do. They
you
do.
can steam in the open. I remember when I stayed in Iceland at the Hotel Keflavik for one night. I booked a stopover package with Icelandic Air many years ago, and we had a sightseeing tour included. And they told us, okay, we're leaving at 11. I don't know if 11:14, and we're going to be back at 12:52. And I said, how in the world would they know this so exactly? It's because of the sun. The sun
Yeah,
came up only for like an hour, and we
right.
had to run and rush through the city to see to do our sightseeing.
And I'll tell you, I had a friend who decided in December to go on his honeymoon to Iceland. And I said, why would anybody go on your honeymoon to Iceland? He said to me, what's a perfect place? What a perfect place to have a honeymoon. There's nothing to do, and there's 23.5 hours of darkness. So, so maybe that's a whole new concept of creative tourism for Iceland, declaring themselves the world's greatest honeymoon spot for winter trips to Iceland.
And of course, you can revert this to be fair to Iceland. They also almost have 24-hour daylight
That's right.
in the summer, so it's not
Yeah.
always
But
dark.
that wouldn't be quite so good for a honeymoon, but it would be good to explore.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Peter, it has been interesting. If you please stay tuned, we're going to
Yes.
listen to bits of a conversation I had with Ivan from Ukraine, telling us a little bit more about the situation in Ukraine. And we're going to have Ivan and a team from Ukraine on one of our events coming up, most likely on Tuesday. So if you stay tuned, and you can hear what is going in the travel and tourism industry with the threat of war in Ukraine.
Yes, well, that should be really interesting. And I'm really looking forward to the Tuesday program. That's going to be a fun program. Let's just hope this stays peaceful.
Thank you, Peter, and
Bye-bye.
we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Go
Bye-bye.
out and get some sun.
Yes, no problem here. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
She wrote to me a question about this strange campaign, which was announced by the private company who is in contact with our state agency, and they made this campaign, keep calm and visit Ukraine. Yeah, it goes in contradiction with messages from the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And actually, when this gift came to me with this question, I've got idea how it looks from abroad. Like all media talks about war and invasion of Russia, and at the same time keep calm and visit Ukraine. And this website, visitukraine.today, it's actually like a private business, but affiliated with the state agency I told you about.
Right.
Our relations, and they sell insurance. Here, nobody feels real risk yet, and everybody is playing with these words. Yeah, like Russia says, we're never going to invade Ukraine. All European and American state says it's already now. It will be in 1 week, in 2 weeks, and our government and our president says, don't worry and don't press too much in media, because we don't feel here this risk, and we're here closer to Russia and we know better. So it's not clear at all what is going on and what's real perspective.
Well, yes, but it's a scary situation, you know. I don't know if Russia would really go that far, because this could really be a conflict what can easily spread quite beyond Ukraine, you know.
Sure. Ukraine is just a point where it can start, but it was always like that. Ukraine is geopolitical center, yeah, not important country itself, but a center where different parties. You hear me well?
Yes, I hear you fine. Yes, I hear you.
You know the book of Zbigniew Brzezinski, Chessmate?
Yeah, I heard about it. Yes, yes.
It was written in 80s, but he was describing all that 40 years, 35 years ago. That Ukraine plays this role between West and East, and Russia and West
Right.
countries, and it will be always like that. So Ukraine came to this point when we have to decide actually our role if we want to stay as a state, who we are, and or to find a special status position to be neutral, but I'm not sure it's possible for Ukraine.
It'll be quite tough in that. So, what? How do people feel there now? I mean, do people think not really think about it that much, or?
Ukraine always is split it into two parts because all Western regions are pro-European because historically it was Austria, Hungary, Poland, Romania countries. These territories were joined Soviet Union after the Second World War. And eastern part, northern part of Ukraine, eastern and south, it was always the Russian Empire, and that's why people are like me in Odessa. We speak Russian here, and we don't feel ourselves citizens of Russian Federation, but we have much more Russian mentality than Ukrainian mentality here.
Right.
And of course, in 30 years of living in a state named Ukraine, we feel ourselves Ukrainians, and we don't want to go to Russia.
What a mess.
But borders and culture and language is different things, and of course it's. But we live in this stupid situation now for 8 years. Yeah, we have Russian on our territory. We have them in Crimea.
Right.
Russian says that Crimea is Russian, and it was a mistake to give it to Ukraine by
So
Khrushchev.
take it back, right?
Yeah. So we just take it back because it was wrong, because we had 200 years ago a war with Turkish, and it was not Ukraine who won the Crimea, and it was just a mistake of Khrushchev, who just gave it to the Republic of Ukraine, and that's it. And they don't want even to discuss it. And I understand that Ukraine probably never will get it back without something serious.
Right.
And same with these two regions of Donbass
Right.
on the east. It's the same story, because it's purely Russian, pro-Russian people living there. They don't want to be part of Ukraine. They never felt themselves part of Ukraine, and it was always mental conflict between people in this, because it's industrial areas. It's very industrial districts, regions where people work in factories, mines, and they live now in this unrecognized status of these republics, but they don't want to join Ukraine back.
But where do they stand? I mean, literally, legally, and in reality, I mean, it's really strange for me, because
yeah, it's strange for all. I mean, we have here on the other side Transnistria, if you know. Transnistria, it's a part of Moldova. You know Moldova?
Right. I heard about that one. Yes, yes, I know Moldova. Yes.
Yeah, there is Talib Rifai was in Moldova.
Yes.
It's Moldova is like Eastern Romania. They speak the same language with Romania, and Moldova was the Republic of Soviet Union, smallest one. And when Soviet Union were destroyed, it was a parade of independence of all republics, became states, and part of Moldova, which is exactly between, it's going through the river Dniester here, between Ukraine, Odessa region, and Moldova. They said they don't want to become Moldovians. They want to continue speak Russian language and so on, and they stay. And it was a war, short, but it was conflict, military conflict, and Russia helped this region to protect them from Moldovan army. And now 30 years they live in this unrecognized Republic Transnistria. It's about 600,000 people living there. And I think that this Donbass region will be the same. It can be very long.
But what passports do these people carry then when they travel?
It's a very funny situation because they have their local passports.
Yeah, but it's not recognized anywhere.
It's not recognized anywhere. So all international travels and all international trade goes under flag of Moldova, but at the same time Moldova do not control this border with Ukraine through Transnistria, and it's like a permanent offshore inside of Moldova.
Wow.
Yeah, and now after these 30 years, I would say that it's only a political issue, because economically speaking, all are okay with this. Everyone is making money with this. Moldova, Ukraine, Russia, all
How do they
okay
make money on it?
It's a black hole. You can do whatever you want there.
So a lawless area, basically, right?
Even because when I go from Odessa to Moldova, for me closer to go through Transnistria because it's a direct road here, just 60 kilometers from my city. Right. And even now during these 2 years of COVID pandemic, they didn't ask any certificates, and I could enter to Moldova through Transnistria without any certification. And then from Transnistria to Moldova, there are no border because Moldova consider them as Moldova.
Yes.
Yeah, and so it's just a gate, free. Yeah.
But
yeah,
if
it's funny.
But if you go to Donbass, there is a real war zone in between.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Here it's 8 years shooting all the time. Small,
right.
but time after time they shoot each other.
So how do these people get to? Are they traveling to Ukraine, or are they just traveling to Russia then?
I mean, of course, some of them have relatives. They travel to both sides probably because it's like border territory. But all who wanted to be in Ukraine, all normal people who don't want to live in this conflict zone, they choose where they want, and they left or to Kiev or to other cities of Ukraine. And part more or less wealthy people, they left to other countries or to Russia, somewhere else. It's only poor people in villages, old people who don't have money to go somewhere, they don't have options, and they continue to live there.
It's sad. It's sad. So what do you think is next?
Oh, nobody knows. Nobody knows. Fine. So I say to you, have a nice day, and I'll contact you tomorrow.
You have a good night, okay? Sleep well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Hello, my friends. It's me again. I'm live from Barbados. And what I wanted to talk to you today was local food brands. So, what do you think? Do you think that local food brands can actually create a demand for tourism? I got a watch here, so you can see I'm talking about Chefette. Chefette is a local fast food brand, and it's almost an institution here in Barbados. And it's a reason why McDonald's didn't have a chance on the island. And you can obviously get your hamburgers, but they have also something very unique, which is the roti. You can get a chicken roti, a beef roti, potato roti, and also a mix of chicken and potato roti. And when actually people travel abroad, they sometimes buy frozen rotis and bring them with them when they go to different countries. So it's definitely something very Barbadian, and I'm gonna check it out and let's see how it is. So I'm all masked up now, and let's go in. Let's do this. Okay, I'm going into Chefette in Barbados. Okay. Alright, a cheerful yellow here. Where do I line up? Okay, I have to go here. Where do I go? Okay. Where can I get a roti?
Roti? Yes.
So here it is, the chicken roti. Actually, the all chicken roti. So you can see now, we're gonna unpack this baby. All right, let's see here what we got. All right. Okay. Okay, and now I'm gonna take a bite from my chicken roti. Let's see. It's very good, and something that is truly Barbadian. Now my question to you is, should Barbados tourism marketing leverage Chefette to develop tourism for the island? Looking forward to your thoughts and ideas, and until next time, stay safe, and I'm sorry you can't have a Chefette all chicken roti if you're not in Barbados. So come visit and check it out. Until then, take care.